Humanitarian journalism.
While the world is grappling with problems right across the entire world, and we know that economically many people are suffering, but also in terms of service delivery and the like. And next up, we have got Imtiaz Syed, Chairperson of eThekwini Secure. But before we get to Imtiaz, let us remember that riba interest is a terrible sin. So you can easily move your business or personal insurance to Amana IFS. You can call them on 0861 786 393 and leave riba for good. Imtiaz Syed, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh and welcome.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yes, a rather cold Johannesburg. As I was driving to the studio this morning, I noticed 6 degrees C this morning, so it's been extremely cold. And we know with cold weather, we do pick up certain problems, and also at the same time, importantly, looking at water. And this morning we want to talk, Imtiaz, about bracing ourselves for water shortages, services, delivery cuts, and also just looking at eThekwini and how the cold weather impacts on these services.
I think to try and put them together would be unfair. But I'm saying that due to the fact that we've got major water shortages in the entire eThekwini area, now coming out late at night to get your water from a water tanker and all of that is going to become a problem. And as we go into the winter season, it's in fact going to be very, very much more worse, because what we need to remember and understand is that if you don't have water, you actually can't really fill water from a tanker into your geyser. And therefore, it's now boiling water and getting into a bucket and having a bath and going to work. So the inconveniences in life have now become quite exponential in terms of you need to get up earlier, you need to go to bed a little later, and all of those things. So that's what's currently happening. I mean, the area of Tongat, it was only yesterday the mayor had announced that they've actually appointed a contractor, and I obviously am privy to the name, but I can't really give it out because it hasn't been announced. However, the contractor says that it's going to take around 4 months, which we really don't see it happening in the next 4 months. So areas like Tongat and Verdlem and all of these areas are going to be left without water for months. And that's the reality of the climate. Areas like Musgrave and Overport, we're getting something called water shedding. So there's certain areas that have water, certain areas that don't have water. And we're hoping to have that properly normalized so that people have an understanding when their homes would have and would not have water. But also the effects of having your water turned on and off all of the time creates major issues in terms of your faucets, in terms of your geysers. And that's something that we see coming to the fore as well at the moment.
Well, certainly, and we've been talking about load shedding, and I don't think many of us considered a thing called or water shedding. And now that
Yeah.
you've highlighted it, obviously, one needs to take this issue very, very seriously. But more importantly, looking at solutions, and as you mentioned, that the powers that be may not deliver on time. Are there any alternative solutions, Imtiaz?
Well, at the moment, there are many households that can't afford it that are putting in JoJo tanks for that interim capacity and trying to get that pumped into their lines per se. But what about those indigent that can't really afford it, if you know what I mean? And what about the people that live in the flats that really don't have water and have to carry up water through lifts and through their staircases and go up in those flats? And what about the elderly and the aged? So we're not considering all of those things. As much as potable water was available initially by the NGOs, we see that many NGOs are drying up in terms of funding, in terms of producing water. And it's not going to be sustainable in the long term to rely on NGOs and NPOs to be providing water in terms of the city's mandate, if you know what I mean.
Well, certainly, and as you mentioned, with the flooding that has taken place, also I think that obviously has created further pressure and has made the problem actually worse than what it has been, Imtiaz.
The thing is, we can blame all of it on flooding, and we can speak to it in that way. However, if we started looking at our infrastructure when we came in as a democracy, and we started reinventing how we looked at society and the urbanization issues, we would have then realized that we would have been finding ourselves wanting in terms of a disaster like this, and we needed to have taken or put in contingency measures way before the floods happened. So yes, the flooding has put this totally out of reach of many officials. However, being said, moving forward, we need to start thinking about the long-term planning of how do we move forward in terms of infrastructure and how do we get it right. And this is one of the reasons why the budget hasn't been approved in council at the last sitting, which was day before yesterday, was to speak to these things, to say that we can no longer put in stopgap measures to fix up infrastructure. We need to look at it, we need to do it properly. And do we as a city have capacity, or do we need to get outside technical people in order to relieve that situation?
Well, Imtiaz, Jazakallah khairan for that, for coming and talking to us. And I'm sure the discussion on infrastructure development and infrastructure upgrades requires a lot more discussion. Hopefully, we will be able to touch on that at some point in the future. But for now, we thank you, Jazakallah, for your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Imtiaz Syed joining us, eThekwini Secure, and this is serious. And we know water shortages, and as Imtiaz mentioned, water shedding. We've got so sick and tired of load shedding, and now the new phenomenon is going to be water shedding. It is a cause for concern. The time is just gone 8:58, and we've got a news exactly on the hour with Zahid Jedward coming up.